I'm Malia Russell from Homemaking 911. I've been working on this series about saving money on your groceries. And one of the things that I feel like everyone talks about is meal planning. However, I'm going to talk to you about it in a little bit different way and hopefully make it seem a little less burdensome and not fun. The first thing you want to do when you start to meal plan is just make a list of meals that off the top of your head your family likes and enjoys eating. Those meals can be things that they really love. It could be things that they just tolerate, but I want you to think about the meals that they really actually will eat and then make a list of those in the order of least hard to the most difficult. And so by doing that, what you'll do is end up having a column of things that are easy to make and a column of things that are moderate to make and a column of things that are hard to make. And I start with that at the very basic beginning because it helps me wrap my brain around the fact that sometimes when I have different levels of energy, I can adjust my meal plan based on how much energy a meal takes. Then the other factor that I look at when I'm doing meal planning, because we're talking all about saving money, is to also mark your meals whether they're very costly to make or they're very inexpensive to make. It helps a lot when I'm meal planning if I know, okay, this is a tighter grocery week, so my meal plan is going to consist of things that are maybe simpler, don't have as many special ingredients, or just include cheaper filler ingredients like brown rice or beans, things that are still nutritious but don't cost as much. Once you've established this list from easy, moderate to hard, then you have that list forever and you can quickly look at it to get ideas for your menu planning. When you go to make your meal plan, you simply take those lists that you've made and you start looking at your calendar and you say, okay, Monday's a really busy night. Let me pick an easy meal or a crock pot meal or something I've made ahead as a freezer meal and put it in on Mondays. Tuesday's pretty easy, so I'm going to make Tuesday the night that I do a little bit more prep work in the kitchen, and so on. And you look over the whole schedule. So right now we're in a stage of life where we can sort of set the schedule for the week and with very few variations. However, during the time where we had baseball practices and baseball schedules with 3 different kids, we often had to eat at the ballpark. And at first I was spending a lot of money on junk food from the ballpark because we were there from 4 to 8 o'clock or something ridiculous. And I quickly realized that this was not serving our family well, nutritionally or financially. So we started coming up with ideas of things that we could pack and take to the ballpark. And even if they weren't the best in terms of either nutrition or money, they were still better than buying ballpark food. And so that was one of the ways that we adjusted when we had a very variable schedule. Another thing that I like to do is when I'm planning for the whole week ahead, I like to think to myself, would I like to have this meal over and over? Because if I do, I can schedule this meal plan to be a weekly meal plan that we repeat. So say, for example, Tuesdays are always some version of Tex-Mex or tacos. So sometimes we might have fajitas that night, or we might always have taco salad that night, or we might always make tacos. But nevertheless, just knowing that the main theme for that night is a Tex-Mex or a taco night helps us know what basic ingredients to have on hand and also about how long it takes to make it. Some people recommend that you determine your menu plan based on sales flyers. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I do not plan my menus around sales flyers, but I do plan my shopping that way. So often when I'm shopping at the grocery, I may not even be buying the things for that week. I probably already have some of the things at home for that week, but I will be purchasing things that are at their rock bottom price. So planning around the sales flyers doesn't really help me much in the way that I do grocery shopping. However, you can do that if you don't have already a stockpile going of food. So for us, once we started saying, okay, we're going to buy chicken when it's rock bottom price and we're going to buy enough for a couple of months, that solved the issue of me ever having to look at sales flyers to plan my menu. That's why I can often make the same menu plan and use it over and over again unless we're tired of something. The third thing to talk about when planning your menu is to plan for overwhelm. Every mother that I talk to, every homemaker that I talk to has times of feeling overwhelmed. And it is okay to plan ahead for that. So there's a couple things you could do with when you're overwhelmed. You could take your family out to eat. You could order carry out. You could have convenience foods at home. So what I'm going to recommend to you to do is not plan on going out to eat, not planning on carry out, but go ahead and purchase a few things at the grocery that make meal planning super simple. So, for example, maybe it's okay to have a couple of frozen pizzas in the freezer for when you have a crazy day where you just can't get it together. Maybe it's okay to have your chicken nuggets and your fish sticks and your mac and cheeses on the shelf for days when things are completely overwhelming, because truly those will still be less expensive than getting carry out. And if you throw in some broccoli or some cut veggies or applesauce or fruit, you can actually elevate the health of that meal over what you would have gotten from a carry out meal anyway. So go ahead and plan to have a few things in your freezer for times when you're completely overwhelmed and don't want to follow your meal plan. Or you can go ahead and plan those in on a particular day of the week. I know some families, for example, like to have Friday pizza night. So they go ahead and plan to have frozen pizzas or pizza dough at home that they can just go ahead and pull out on that night of the week. Give themselves a planned break. In our previous video, when we talked about zero waste, one of the things that I do in my meal planning to make sure that we are contributing to that zero waste lifestyle is I put a couple of days of just leftovers. And those work really well to make sure that we're pulling everything out of the fridge and using it up. In addition to that, if I find that I have leftovers in large quantities, I go ahead and take the time on leftover nights if it's not eaten to go ahead and freeze it or process it some other way to put it in the freezer for a meal later, or go ahead and make sure it gets used in the next meal that we're having. Some of the questions I get frequently when I'm talking to friends about meal planning is, well, I have a lot of people with different allergies. What do I need to do for that? And I completely understand that problem. When I was pregnant with my 5th child, I realized that we had a lot of food allergies in our family because we did some testing, and we had to eliminate eggs, oats, corn, and soy for a family member and tomatoes for another, and another was having trouble with dairy. So what I did was I sat down for just 20 minutes and brainstormed really hard what meals can meet everybody's requirements with no changes, and made a list of several meals, 5 or 6, that met everybody's requirements. And then I just rotated those meals, and I can tell you, during that year, we had a lot of chicken, broccoli, and rice. I can remember that year being the chicken, broccoli, and rice year because everybody could eat it. It was quick to cook, quick to make, didn't cause a lot of drama. But over time, I did learn how to do more and more substitutions for things that we couldn't have in recipes. So I learned how to make a meatloaf without any tomatoes in it. I learned how to make cakes with no eggs in it. So over time, I got better and better at those quick substitutions. But when it first happened, when we first had to change everything, just getting 5 meals in my mind or 6, written down, quick, easy meals that we could prepare was a perfect way to take care of the allergy issues. The other thing that I've done over the years as my kids have gotten older and often have meals at different times than the rest of the family, due to work or other scheduling issues, is it's okay to let an individual have an individual meal. So I have one family member here who's allergic to tomatoes, and so I have for her in the freezer specific meals that are just for her. She can pull out and eat. So if we decide to have lasagna night, which I consider to be a really easy night because I've either made it ahead or purchased a frozen one, she can pull out one of those meals and eat it and not have any problems. So that's been one of the ways that we figured out how to compromise and work with that. That would be hard if your children were younger because a lot of times they want to eat what you're eating. So you just have to understand their ages and gauge whether they would care if they had a different meal or not. An objection I hear from people often is that they don't really have time to make a meal plan. And I do understand that we can be really busy and it's hard to carve that out. But what I recommend is you go ahead and sit down and carve out 30 minutes to make a detailed-ish meal plan that you can use over and over and over, either for 1 week or 2 weeks that you rotate. And by doing this, you can always have a sense of direction for what you're doing in the kitchen, and you're not having to make decisions when you're already fatigued and tired from your day. So for example, for our menu plan, we'll have chili on one day, tacos on another day, chicken on another day, and soup on another day. Well, I can take that day and make any number of soups. It could be soup at Toscana, it could be potato soup, it could be chicken noodle soup, it could be veggie beef soup. It doesn't really matter. I just know that on that day I'm going to have soup. And so that'll help me the night before when I'm looking into my life going, what do I need to take care of for tomorrow? Oh, I can go ahead and get the meat out for the soup tomorrow. I can see what veggies I have left over that I can add into the soup. So that really helps me. The other thing is like chicken, for example, could be made in hundreds of ways. And so if I have chicken on the menu on Thursday, I know that Wednesday night I'm going to go ahead and get chicken to thaw, and then I'll start thinking pretty quickly what sides I want to have with it. Do I have leftover sides we can use, or do I need to make a salad, or am I going to make all fresh sides? So I don't have to make every decision for the meal plan, but just having the bare bones there makes eating each day easier because you just know what you need to prep ahead a little bit. Another objection that I hear regularly is I don't like to know ahead. I like to just decide that day and throw something together that I want. I don't want to be forced to eat something I planned 2 weeks ago and I don't even want it today. So just so you know, I also really like variety. One of the luxuries of having a well-stocked pantry and a well-stocked freezer is that you can just say, oh, today we feel like having this food, so that's what we're going to make. And that is one of the fun parts about having a system where you stock up things slowly over time. However, what I do love about my meal plan is if I'm not feeling that creative urge, I have a place to go. I can go straight to the fridge, look at the list. Today is chicken. I'm going to make a chicken dish. I'm going to do the very basics of chicken and get it done. Or I can look at the menu and say, well, tomorrow's supposed to be chicken, but I really want to try that new recipe for whatever. And I can change my mind. The good news is I can change my mind and make whatever I want to on the fly. But I don't want to waste ingredients that I've purchased fresh. So that's another really good reason why you want to build in leftover meals for either lunch or dinner on your meal plan, so that if you do end up changing your mind, doing something different, a whole month hasn't gone by and you open your produce drawer and you find the zucchini that you bought for Tuesday a month ago. So make sure that on those leftover nights you go ahead and are sure to get everything in your fridge ready and out and going so that people can eat it and use it up before it goes bad. The last thing I do want to talk about meal planning is the concept of freezer cooking. So we often do have meals here that I prepared ahead and froze, and I have 2 meals a week, one for dinner and one for lunches, that is completely a planned time to pull out a frozen meal. That's another way to add in some variety to your week without having to have the same things all the time. But those meals are prepared ahead, and how I do that is a couple of different ways. One is to double dinners. 2 is to spend an afternoon just making several meals for the freezer. And 3 is to pre-purchase things ahead that are frozen. So you can do any of those methods and get some meals in your freezer and then go ahead and put those into your menu plan. The same can be true if you like to use your crock pot when you're out a lot, is you can make some crock pot meals ahead. You can put all the ingredients together in a container that you put in your crock pot later. Either it's frozen in a shape that'll fit in your crock pot, or you plan to thaw it a little bit so that you can get it into your crock pot, but you can do that ahead as well. So I hope that these tips give you some ideas for some things you can do to simplify your meal planning, and it can help you save some money at the grocery.